Talking about clubs all over the place in disarray, that's definitely the team at the top of the tree in that respect. But Barcelona have had consistency for many years up to right now. And their recruitment of late has been nothing short of terrible, really, and they were destroyed. Listen, when you're a successful team, you're fighting on all fronts. Liverpool are that at the moment, and so I totally understand he's going to have to shuffle the pack in a game like this. A lot of people are, the history of the FA Cup, should he, shouldn't he? Listen, he wants to make sure his squad remain fresh. And if he feels he can still get through this next round with a lesser team, a younger team, then so be it. He's giving great experience to players as well. They'll be licking their lips at the thought of playing at Anfield for Liverpool. The only discrepancy I have, and where I think is where he's probably taking a liberty in some ways, is that if he's not going to be in the actual dugout,
it looks like it'll be Neil Critchley that's
and I think that's where I draw the line. I think the manager should be in the dugout every game. Doesn't matter whether he's putting out a depleted squad or not. He should be in there. Who's accountable for this? Are you someone standing up and saying, actually, it was my fault, or digging someone out and finger pointing and shouting? Surely that's happening. I hope it is. I pray to God it is.
It needs to be that after a performance like that, it would have to be a heated dressing room. Otherwise, something's wrong. If they go in after that and they're all meek and that, like you said, you need to grab a few, and because it's certainly to lose to a team like that after the results of the weekend. Listen, they're just not at it.
I hope Ollie's doing that. Let alone all the players. I hope Ollie's in there, in front of people, over people, going, listen, you are embarrassing yourself and me.
Someone you would know. Is that his personality?
It wasn't his personality as a player, no chance. That wasn't what Ollie was about. He was very quiet. He was somebody who took care of his own game, but he was cutting with comments at times when he needed to be. I just hope he's very animated in that dressing room, because them players need a rocket. I'm telling you, because the way they're performing at the moment, the inconsistency, the way that they're allowing people to run off them, I don't see an intensity at all. There's no intensity in the way that they play. I don't see him like getting up against people, ruffling feathers, and on a consistent basis. We might see it one game, we don't see it for two. You can't do that at a top club. If you want to be a top club going for trophies and competing, you need that week in, week out, and that's got to be the demands put on everyone every week. I think sometimes that is an area that is very undervalued and not spoken about enough, is the human touch and the personality of a manager, that he brings that connection to the squad.
Especially important these days, it seems.
Hugely important. These are guys are famous guys. They're huge personalities themselves, big characters, egos everywhere. And for a manager to be able to control that, and I think the fact that he's been a number two somewhere and probably been that glue in the dressing room, because number twos are normally the glue, the manager's normally the stern one.
But number twos don't normally, when they step up, achieve two.
But what I'm saying, he's understood, and the players have known him in that capacity. Then to change and go into the Bayern as the first team manager, then it's about his intelligence to switch over, to change, but to also keep that human element that he seems to have done, because the pictures there tell you all. They seem like they love him. I mean, he done that at Manchester United with Luke Shaw. He done it with Pogba. What was the reaction that he got there? It wasn't positive. He lost them and others in the change room through doing that.
It's what he does. That's what he's always done. He had problems. Similar sort of thing at Real Madrid and other places.
Yeah, but that was a generation before. Yeah. He had players like Inter and Chelsea, seasoned players who were hardened players. John Terry, Lampard, Drogba, Cech at Chelsea. He could do that. You had players like Materazzi, Zanetti, etc. Lucio, Eto'o at Inter. Them players could take criticism, and I'm not sure he'd done it publicly with them either, but in the change room he would have done that and he'd have got a reaction. Players in this generation might be different. You've got to handle players different. If he had a full squad and he was doing this to Ndombele, I'd understand it, that he might get a reaction. I wouldn't agree with
What's the difference now?
But he's down to the bare bones. He hasn't got no players. The depth he keeps moaning about in the squad, and you're risking a player reacting the right way positively to the criticism publicly. I don't get it. Another big question is, what is Messi thinking? What's he thinking now in that change room, going home tonight? Is he thinking
he's probably thinking, I've got another year or two left in my career at that kind of level.
But does he want to spend it in that shirt at that club, given the performances and the way the squad is looking at the moment in comparison to other teams around Europe? So it's a big question, I'm sure, that he'd probably be thinking about. Has he got the time to sit there and wait?
No, he doesn't, no.
Football is a game that goes and comes and goes very quick in your life. So these next 2 years where he's still going to be, he's going to have the power to influence games the way he does. Is he going to want to be doing that, really, not really competing for the big titles? I don't know. I think he tried to do the same thing at the beginning of last season. In the Community Shield, we watched him against Man City, and they got caught in behind Gomez and Trent Alexander-Arnold probably 3 or 4 times in that game through pressing too high. I understand pressing because they want to condense the pitch and pin a team back, but it comes back to the old school messaging as a young player being coached. If there is pressure on the ball and the player on the ball has got his head down and he can't see anything, you can press because he can't pick a pass.
Correct.
The moment he's got time to look up and scan the pitch, you've got to take a step back to stop the way they're going to kill you in behind. The last place you want a centre forward to run, like Michael or yourself, I don't want you running there.
No.
And if you're trying to probe and you're trying to hurt teams like that and open them up, you don't mind when they get it wrong in the final third. You don't want it to be them risks to be taken.
So it's okay for you that he's doing that because eventually the reward comes, or does he need to? Is it just that he takes the risks and that's a great thing, but he needs to improve the technique, or does he just need to keep on doing that?
I'll show you. Well, that table I showed you before,
Yeah.
he was top of the stats in terms of creating chances, shots on goal, etc. So I'm telling you that he is taking the risk in the right areas. If he was doing it on the edge of his box, and then the turnover of possession meant a chance on his own goal, then I'd say you've got something to work on. I'm okay in the final third try. Big problem for me is when we go around, we've been fortunate to go to a few games, and we get to speak to some of the players after a game. And a lot of the time when I see a lot of these players, I'm asking, how are you dealing with all the situations with these penalty decisions and the new rules that have come in? There hasn't been one player that said to me, I'm totally fine with it. They're all confused. There's too many grey areas, there's confusion everywhere, and no one is certain of what happens. So a decision...
Particularly with the handball.
With the handballs, and a decision gets made, the referee blows up, everyone is in panic stations, heart rate's going through the roof, because there's so much uncertainty. I don't think it's great for the game. All these decisions are getting changed completely every year. The game was great before all of this came in. Do you know what I mean? Why change something that was already great? It was already a fantastic product the Premier League have got, and we're adding new, different rules that almost certainly create grey areas. The hunger is born from wanting to get out of them areas. Listen, when we were living in them areas, people say, oh, what's your childhood like? I only smiled in my childhood. I loved it. It was great moments, great memories. It's not until you come out and you look back and you think, actually, it was much more difficult than my mum or my dad allowed me to understand and know. That's what he's alluding to in that interview, which is fantastic. But the kid, from what I've spoke to some QPR coaches over the last couple of days, knowing we're doing this game, and they said, listen, England is not beyond this kid. Yeah. He's got all the tools to be able to get in an English
Under 21 call up this week.
Exactly, it's how he applies himself from here on in.